When my friend Evan and I were in our late 20s, we started making it a tradition to take a few days off work in late spring and head into the backcountry. We both did field work for different environmental groups, so getting time off during the week wasn't too hard, and we liked it better that way. No weekend crowds, no noisy campgrounds, just us, the trees, and miles of space. In 2025, we decided to try a stretch of wilderness neither of us had been in before, an old-growth pocket in the Blue Mountains of eastern Oregon. Evan had read about it in some forestry journal and claimed it was the kind of place you could disappear in without trying. I took that as him trying to sell me on the remoteness. We drove as far as the rutted road would take us until a fallen pine blocked the way. From there, it was all boots and packs. We left the truck by a small picnic area, crossed a narrow stream, and hiked uphill for about 20 minutes until we found a clearing just wide enough for 2 tents, a stove, and a decent fire pit. The first order of business was pitching the tents. Evan had his up in 5 minutes flat. The guy's done wildland firefighting and can set camp in his sleep. Me? I've always been the slow one, double-checking every stake, fighting with tangled guy lines. It was pushing 20 minutes by the time I stepped back from mine. He was already building a neat circle of rocks for the fire. We gathered enough deadfall for the night and sheeted with a fire starter, something we always swore we wouldn't do. But when you're tired and the sun's dipping, you don't care about bushcraft pride. By the time the light was fading to gold, the fire was crackling, and Evan was searing venison steaks he brought from a recent hunt. That was his thing. He never packed freeze-dried meals, always brought something fresh to cook the first night. We ate like kings, beer cans sweating in our hands, some old Stones song humming low from his Bluetooth speaker. The smell of meat mixed with pine smoke hung in the air. We talked about nothing important, the kind of easy conversation you can only have with someone you've known for years. The fire burned down to embers, and we pulled out a battered deck of cards and a little folding table. We'd just started our second round of cribbage when I noticed something under the music, a faint, steady humming. I held up a hand, and Evan paused mid-play. I stopped the music. The sound was still there, coming from somewhere beyond the ring of firelight. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't an animal. It was definitely a human voice, low and tuneless, paired with slow, deliberate footfalls in the duff. We both sat frozen for a moment before Evan muttered, "Flashlight." I dug through my pack, but by the time I flicked it on, the sound was gone. We scanned the tree line, nothing but black trunks and deeper shadows. "That's weird," I said, my voice sounding too loud in the silence. "More than weird," Evan replied. "Nobody should be up here unless they came the same way we did, and we didn't see anyone." We tried to shrug it off, but the easy mood was gone. The speaker stayed off. The cards went back in their box. A little while later, we both flinched as something landed between us in the dirt. It was a stick, about a foot long, freshly broken. At one end, it hadn't dropped from above. It had come from the trees. Evan stood, scanning the darkness. "Whoever's out there, knock it off," he called. No answer, just the sound of footsteps moving away, slow, steady, unhurried. "Let's pack up and move," I said. He shook his head. "Not hiking blind through this terrain. We've got spray. We'll take shifts." We agreed. He'd watch first. I'd take over in a few hours. He sat near the fire with a headlamp and his book. I crawled into my tent, zipped the flap, and tried to ignore the pulse in my ears. It felt like I'd just drifted off when I heard it, the faint rasp of a zipper sliding. My eyes opened to the sight of a head and shoulders framed in my tent's open flap. "Evan?" I mumbled, still tangled in sleep. The figure didn't answer, didn't move, just crouched there, blocking the view beyond. The firelight was too faint to see a face. Then, without a sound, the flap zipped shut again. I sat up fast, heart pounding. Footsteps crunched away from my tent. "Evan," I called. No answer. I unzipped and stepped out, sweeping my light across the campsite. Evan's tent was zipped tight. I crossed the clearing, pulled it open, and found him asleep inside. When I shook him awake and told him, he was up in an instant, grabbing his bear spray. We went together to my tent so I could grab my sleeping bag and crash in his. As I crouched to pull it free, the humming started again. Closer now, threading. "Between the trees. You hear that?" I whispered. "Yeah," he said, his voice low. "Let's move." We ducked into his tent and zipped up. The 2 cans of spray sat between us as we sat listening to every creak, snap, and shift in the dark. Hours passed like that, trading watches, neither of us really sleeping. Every so often, there'd be a faint crack of a branch in the distance. Not random, not like an animal blundering through, but slow and deliberate, like someone pacing a circle around us. At last, the black began to soften to gray. "Lights up," Evan said. "We're out." We packed in silence, checking the tree line every few seconds. On the way back down, maybe 30 yards from camp, I spotted prints in a patch of damp soil. They weren't ours. The tread was smooth, no pattern, like felt-bottom boots made for quiet movement. Neither of us said a word until we saw the truck again. Only then did Evan mutter, "Told you. It's not the bears you've got to worry about out here." It's been months since that trip, and I still catch myself scanning the shadows when I'm out in the field. I can't explain what that person was doing out there, why they came to my tent, why they just stood there. But I can tell you this: silence in the woods doesn't mean you're alone. I'd spent enough summers working in state parks to know the kind of things people get up to once they think no one's watching. Campers who dump trash in the woods, teenagers tagging signs, off-trail hikers who swear they just got turned, around when you find them somewhere they aren't supposed to be. But until last year, I'd never been genuinely afraid of anyone I ran into on patrol. It was early June, my second season at a mid-sized park in the Appalachians. Weekdays were slow. A few retirees with fishing permits, maybe a family or 2 picnicking near the lake. I'd been assigned to monitor the North Trails that week, an area that doesn't get much foot traffic except during peak foliage. That morning was perfect hiking weather. Cool, overcast, just enough breeze to keep the bugs down. I signed out a radio, filled my Nalgene, and took the ranger truck to the end of the maintenance road. From there, it's a 2-mile hike in to where the North Ridge Trail begins. The first mile was uneventful. I did my usual, checked the fire rings for leftover embers, kicked debris off the path, scanned for fresh boot prints. Nothing out of the ordinary. But when I reached the split where the ridge trail climbs toward a series of overlooks, I noticed something that made me stop. There were boot prints in the mud. Not unusual in itself, except these were strange. No tread pattern, just smooth. Ovals, like someone wearing old wrestling shoes or felt soles. The kind that grip rock, but don't make much noise. I followed them up the trail. They wandered in and out of the path, like the person had stopped often, maybe stepped off to the side. At one point, they circled a large oak twice before continuing. About 20 minutes in, I heard it, a single sharp crack from up ahead, like a branch breaking under weight. I froze, scanning the trees. The trail curved sharply to the right a few yards ahead, and beyond it, everything was still. "Park ranger," I called, coming through. No answer. I kept walking, slower now, hand brushing the radio on my hip. As I rounded the bend, I saw movement up the slope to my left. Someone in a dark jacket, standing behind a fallen log, just far enough back that I couldn't see their face. "You all right up there?" I asked. The figure didn't move. I started up the slope, crunching over leaves. "This area's restricted past the ridge," I said. "You need to head back toward the main trail." Still nothing. I was about 10 feet away when they stepped back, disappearing into the thicker brush. Not running, not stumbling, just melting into the trees. By the time I reached the log, they were gone. I stood there for a moment, scanning the undergrowth. The woods felt hollow, quiet in a way that wasn't normal for midday. I told myself they were just avoiding a ticket. People do that all the time. I headed back to the trail, made a note in my logbook, and kept moving toward the first overlook. It was empty when I got there. The view stretched for miles, rolling green ridges under a pale sky. The wind pushed through the scrubby pines at the edge. I took a few minutes to breathe it in, then turned to head back down. That's when I saw the boot prints again. They were fresher this time, pressed deep into the dirt, heading the same direction I was. The strange part? They overlapped my own prints from the way up. Whoever it was had followed me after I passed them. I kept my pace steady, ears straining. Every so often I'd catch the faintest shuffle from behind me, but when I stopped, it stopped. About halfway down, I decided to take the loop that cuts toward the old fire tower. A longer route, but with fewer blind corners. I wanted space. To see, the tower's been out of use for decades, just a rusting skeleton of steel and weathered wood. Most people don't bother with it. When it came into view through the trees, I felt a small wave of relief. At least it was an open spot with 360 visibility. I stepped into the clearing, scanning the tree line. Nothing. I walked a slow circle around the base, checking the graffiti on the supports. Then I noticed something at the far edge of the clearing, a small pile of rocks. 4 of them stacked in a neat little tower about a foot high. Balanced on top was a strip of red fabric, fluttering in the breeze. I didn't touch it, didn't even step closer. I just backed toward the trail and keyed my radio. "Base, this is North Patrol. I've got signs of unauthorized activity near the fire tower, requesting another ranger to meet me at the loop junction." The reply crackled back. They'd send someone up from the main station, but it'd be at least 40 minutes. I didn't want to stand still that long. I kept moving, keeping my head on a swivel. The boot prints showed up again now and then, always in the damp patches, always on top of mine. By the time I reached the loop junction, no one was there yet. I waited, leaning against a tree, eyes fixed on the trail I'd just come from. After 5 minutes, I saw movement. Someone stepping into view about 50 yards down. Same dark jacket, hood up. This time, they were facing me. I started to raise my hand in a half wave, half signal to stop. But before I could say anything, they lifted their arm too, not waving, holding something. I couldn't see it clearly, just a glint of light. Then they lowered it and stepped back out of sight. That was enough for me. I turned and walked fast toward the maintenance road, radioing an update. The other ranger met me halfway. We went back together, but the trail was empty. The only sign they'd been there at all was that little stack of rocks by the tower, now knocked over, the red fabric gone. I've been back on that trail since. Seen plenty of normal hikers, kids on field trips, even the occasional lost tourist. But every now and then, in the mud near the overlook or the tower loop, I'll see those same smooth Treadles' prints. I've stopped following them. I've been an over-the-road trucker for 12 years now, and I've seen my fair share of strange things out there at night. shadows moving across empty asphalt, people walking along the shoulder in the middle of nowhere, half-lit gas stations that feel like you've stepped into the wrong decade. But what happened last September, somewhere along a forgotten stretch of Highway 50 in Nevada, stuck with me in a way none of those other moments did. It was around 2 a.m., and I was running a load of electronics eastbound from Reno to Denver. My delivery window was tight, so I planned to push through the night and sleep in a rest area once I was in Utah. The weather was clear, no wind, no traffic. Just me, the hum of the engine, and the steady thrum of tires on the pavement. Out. Here, miles pass without seeing another vehicle. Your world shrinks to the beam of your headlights, and whatever's just beyond it. I'd been on the road maybe 4 hours without stopping when I saw the first thing that made me slow down. A single, small red light, low to the ground, maybe 50 yards ahead on the right shoulder. As I got closer, it became clear it was a bicycle taillight, flickering weakly. The bike itself was lying on its side, one wheel still spinning slightly. I scanned the darkness for a rider. Nothing. I pulled into the opposite lane to give it space and kept going. I've learned not to stop unless someone is clearly in danger. Too many stories of setups and robberies. Still, I kept checking my mirrors for a minute or two, half expecting to see someone step out onto the road. Instead, I saw headlights crest the hill behind me. A sedan, maybe 100 yards back, moving slower than it should have been. I figured they'd pull over for the bike, maybe help whoever it belonged to. But they didn't. They just stayed a fixed distance behind me, mile after mile. 10 minutes later, I passed a small gas station, one of those all-night ones with a single pump and an old convenience store attached. I thought about stopping for coffee, but the sedan behind me slowed too, keeping its distance. Something about that kept me moving. Another 20 miles passed like that. Then, out of nowhere, my CB crackled to life. "You missed it," a male voice said. I froze, my hand hovering over the mic. "Missed what?" I asked. Silence. I tried again. "Who is this?" Still nothing. Just static. I kept driving, every hair on my neck standing up. The sedan was still there, now just a pair of distant headlights in my mirror. About 15 minutes later, I came around a bend and saw something that made my stomach drop. Another bicycle. This one upright, parked neatly on the shoulder. And next to it, a person standing perfectly still, facing the road. I eased into the left lane, my eyes fixed on them as I passed. They were wearing a dark hoodie, the hood pulled low. I couldn't see their face. They didn't move, not even to track me with their head. The sedan behind me slowed again as it passed them. That's when my CB came alive once more. "You'll miss the next one too." I didn't respond this time. I just kept my eyes on the empty black ribbon of road ahead. My fuel was getting low, and I knew there was a truck stop coming up in about 30 miles. I made the decision to pull in there no matter what. But 10 miles out, I saw it again. The third bike. This one was in the middle of the road. I slowed to a crawl, my high beams washing over it. The front wheel was bent at an odd angle, the handlebars twisted. And next to it, on the opposite shoulder, was another figure. Same hoodie, same stillness. I pulled into the opposite lane and eased past, my eyes flicking to the mirror, and saw the sedan pull over behind the bike. I didn't stick around to watch what happened next. I pushed the truck hard, my speed creeping above what I'd usually allow on a night run. When I finally saw the lights of the truck stop, relief flooded through me. I pulled in, parked under the brightest floodlight I could find, and killed the engine. I sat there for a minute, scanning the lot. No sedan, no bikes. I went inside, grabbed a coffee, and chatted with the overnight clerk just to shake the tension. off. When I came back out 20 minutes later, my truck was exactly where I'd left it. Except for one thing. Leaning against my front bumper was a bicycle. Not one of the ones from the road. This one was older, with chipped red paint and a missing seat. The front wheels spun lazily in the breeze. I didn't touch it. I just climbed into the cab, locked the doors, and drove until the sun came up. I never saw the sedan again. But for weeks afterward, whenever I parked the truck overnight, I'd find myself glancing around the lot, half expecting to see a flickering red light low to the ground, waiting for me to notice.